Okay, so your name is?
Jennifer Oligas.
Okay, and what brought you down to Occupy Louisville?
I don't need a picture.
Well, I had heard...
Oh, all right. Well, before we go any further, who do you have with you?
This is Lucero, and this is
Chloe,
Chloe.
which you already interviewed.
Yes, we've already heard from Chloe.
We came down because, Chloe, I'm Balima.
Hi.
Because we've been hearing about what's going on all over the country. And, we decided to bring some food down in support, and because we can't be actively camping out or being here because of all the kids, but just to show support because it's just so important that we all are involved in what's going on, because I feel like our voices need to grow. Mommy. I don't know if this is going to work right now.
Well, it's part of life, right?
Yeah, it's part of life. And that's what I wanted to bring the girls down to, just so that they begin to get more exposed to the fact that you don't have to just silence your discontent, that it's an active process, that's part of being in a democracy. It's supposed to be the ability to be heard, which I believe is getting less and less.
So that actually is kind of a theme from a lot of people, that they feel the government isn't necessarily working for them, or they're not being heard. What are your thoughts on that? What's been your experience with that?
All the special interest lobbies and all of the people with money up top don't have any trouble getting their views heard and getting what they want done, but us people that are in the lower half, or wherever we are at, as long as we're not right up there in the top 10%, have a really hard time getting our voices heard these days. And I feel like it's becoming more and more dysfunctional, our democracy, and maybe it was always dysfunctional and we just were trying to pretend that it wasn't, but it seems like it really is at that point where more and more everyday people are starting to see that it needs to change.
What are some of the issues that are really important to you? Because I know the Occupy movement is bringing together people with a lot of different concerns. And what are some of the issues that are important to you?
I'm a midwife and a mother, and as a midwife, the healthcare system is really important to me, and maternity care, and in the U.S. it's just surprising how high our mortality rates are for mothers and babies. We're worse than Cuba, we're worse than a lot of underdeveloped countries are, and it's not from a lack of resources, it's from just a lack of appropriate funding for different groups. And you look at the socioeconomic status of the people that are greatly affected, and it's a lot of poor women that are losing their lives. And I'm sorry, it makes me a little emotional. As a midwife, that's really important to me. That's unacceptable. So,
do you have a sense for how this movement might be able to make change? How kind of the mechanics of when people come together like this, how does it turn into political change?
That's always the hard part. I feel like that's always, especially in a movement like this, that feels like it's people who have been caring about a lot of separate issues for a long time coming together and trying to institute some political change is a big challenge. And it still feels like it's in its its baby stage, its infancy as a movement for sure, but it has to start somewhere. So I feel like with every new city that pops up on the map as having an event of some sort of occupation, it adds strength and it adds energy to the momentum of the movement. And I think that it's just a matter of time until more and more people's lives are affected and more people just can't pretend that it's okay anymore.
Do you think that any of the political people are listening?
I think it's real easy for them to dismiss movements like this as just a bunch of college kids or just a bunch of hippies, or I feel like if politicians started receiving minimum wage and trying to run a household on it and raise a family with it, then they'd really realize that it's impossible these days and times, and that but they aren't us. More and more politicians are not us. They're rich people, and they get there only because they have funding from other rich people. So they take care of themselves and they take care of their cronies, but they have no relationship to us normal people anymore. It seems like it's more and more distance between us.
So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting point in a representative democracy. If it sounds like what you're saying is that the only people who can represent the people are, they have to kind of by nature be extremely wealthy, which kind of makes them not representative of
the majority of the people in this country. Yeah, and I feel like it's just one of those things that, if you look at history and you look at how revolutions begin all over the world, usually there's somewhere in there where the rich keep getting richer and the poor get poorer and the middle class gets smushed out. And not to say we're on the verge of something that big, but I feel like if it continues... Hey, Lucero's running away. Can you go get her? Okay. That it can't go that way forever before people start having nothing, and people with nothing aren't happy people, so people will start making a change, and I think people should listen sooner than later before we end up going down that path, because we're a young country, we're a really young country, and we have lots to learn. And I think that we need to take heed of this class division that's going on right here before it becomes a huge division that erupts into something that we can't turn back from.
This is the first day that you've been down here?
Yeah.
So you haven't really had a chance yet to see the model of direct democracy that they're using?
No, I haven't. I've been interested in the organization of how they're organizing things down here. Because back in the day, during the beginning of the Iraq War, before the Iraq War started, I was real involved with the local movement around here too, and just to see how things have changed in that way is interesting to me too. And we'd like to be more involved, but I feel like now that we're down here, I'm not really sure who to talk to, or if there is some direct booth or leadership area where there's somebody to really contact about that. So
if you end up down here later in the week, I'm going to be here on and off, and if you happen to see me, let me know how you found getting integrated or kind of meeting people.
Okay.
I'd be interested to hear what you thought.
Yeah, it is always a little bit nerve-wracking from an outsider's point of view to come into something like this if you're not one of the organizers, and that's always a challenge, I think, of movements like this, is how to be welcoming and open to a variety of different people, to really make people feel like, because I think a lot of average Joe people are kind of nervous about coming down because they think those kids, it's just a bunch of anarchists down there. It's just a bunch of this. The movement looks like this, And I think the movement just looks however you make it look, If you go down and you come down here, then it looks like you, So I think that it's a really important thing for us and them and everybody who's involved to work on being open and being really welcoming to people.
Great. So thank you very much, and I just want to ask if there's anything in particular that you would like to people to know or think about or see, or
if you're discontented, or you have student loans, or you have no job, or you can't find work, or you're underpaid, that now's the time to just kind of step forward and come down and see what's going on. And if what's going on down here doesn't work for you, do something else. But just do something. It'll feel good.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.